Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I don't even know really where to start this. It's been a while since I've talked about sobriety on this channel, and obviously that's been something I've been struggling with for the last 4 years. I've kind of just been going around and around in a circle, really, for the last 4 years, dealing with the same issues over and over again. So I thought, since I haven't talked about my sobriety in a while, I'd do a little update on how things have been. I feel like the last time I talked about sobriety was only after my first relapse, really, or maybe even before that. I don't know. It was on my second channel. I did a little video of like day in the life of a recovering addict. So yeah, I just wanted to do a little update video now because I don't even know like how to, it feels so awkward trying to talk about this stuff, but yeah, look at this. Check this out. I just got this little guy because I am 1 year sober. So that's really cool. You may or may not know, depending on where you've kept up with me, if you have at all in the last few years, but I have always struggled with my sobriety getting past. The longest I'd ever made it was right under 11 months. I've definitely been a chronic relapser in my recovery. I just hadn't been ready, really. My drug usage was very, very, very highly intertwined with my trauma. And so anytime I tried to deal with said trauma, it would bring me back to relapsing. Or if I was having a bad day with my trauma, it would bring me back to relapsing. It was just all so much interconnected, aside from just the typical experience trying to get sober from addiction and all the things that can trigger a relapse. Just having the drug addiction so deeply intertwined with the issues I was trying to recover from made me all the more chronic of a relapser. So it feels so good this time to have gotten to a year. I feel so different now than I ever have about my recovery. I feel like there's just a lot of big things that have been changing for me this year and this last year, and I want to talk about it a little bit. I am going to do more videos in the future that talk about just little different topics that I want to talk about, because I have this list here of things that I would like to talk about now that I'm a year sober, and it's a huge list. It's so long, and I don't want to make a super long video and bore you guys. So first of all, sobriety, the more and more I am sober, the more and more it hits me that I feel like I am waking up from a 4-year fog. Everything in those 4 years I can remember. It's not like I was so drugged up that I was out of it, but it just doesn't feel like it was really me, because heroin in particular, opiates, to me, they affect me in a way where I still feel like myself. I still feel like as if I'm interacting normally with everyone, but there is this like thin little bubble around me where it's like nothing can really affect me. Nothing can really actually penetrate my real feelings and like affect me how they would as if I was sober. And so it just feels like I'm operating life with a little protective bubble around me. So when I'm sober now, that bubble has been burst, and I'm suddenly feeling everything that I have shielded myself from. It like hits you all at once, really. For me specifically, it genuinely feels like all the things that affected me, all the things that hurt me that I didn't deal with before I started using, and everything that hurt me and affected me during the time I was using are all hitting me as if it happened this morning. It's just like, it makes me feel very, very stunted in many ways, but on this topic particularly, it makes me feel like I'm suddenly grieving and dealing with emotions and working through problems of things that happened so long ago. And everyone that was a part of those issues and a part of those situations, they've moved on. They have lives. They have whole new lives. They have 4+ years of new experiences. And I feel like they hurt me today. And so it's very confusing and hard to work through and hard to process, because all of the feelings that I had 4+ years ago, I'm suddenly having now, and I'm having to learn how to grieve those feelings and work through them in a productive way. Another way that I feel stunted is very emotionally. I feel very emotionally stunted. I'm 26 now, but I still feel like I'm 21. It's weird. I'm having a very big disconnect personally with my age and my body and who I am today, because one, I don't feel like I really know. I don't know her. I don't know who this person is at 26, because the last time I was experiencing things and doing things and feeling things and having things shape who I was like 21. I started dealing with drugs and everything that comes with that late 2018. And since then, I haven't had the ability to really grow much and mature much and have much of anything shape who I am. I've stayed exactly the same running from my trauma. So all of a sudden, I feel mentally like I'm still this 21, 22-year-old girl. I feel like I had experiences up until that point. And then mentally, emotionally, I was in like this coma. I was in like an emotional coma for 4 years. So I'm very confused. There's so much I wanted to do with my 20s. And another big issue that comes with that is I personally like grew up in a way where I very much highly over romanticized my early 20s. My dating life up until addiction was prominently men who were much older than me, who liked that I was younger, and definitely sold me on this whole, oh, you're so mature for your age type of thing. I was always friends with people older than me. I was always the youngest of the group. I always dated much older. There was only like 2 or 3 occasions where I ever dated someone around my age. And I was just so used to that being who I was. It so much shaped my identity as a kid as being like the young one who is mature enough for these men. And I didn't recognize, because that's how the grooming process works, I didn't recognize that they didn't like me because I happened to be young, but I was mature enough. They liked me because I was young. All these men definitely were dating other men. All these men were definitely dating other people who were young. It wasn't like I was some anomaly where I happened to be young, but they made it work. And I just did not see that growing up. I was so naive, and I really thought like, oh,
I'm special
kind of thing. It's finally like actually clicked, and like I've been working through that stuff. But because of that and the way I grew up, over romanticizing being like 16 to 21, and how much like media, social media and television and everything glamorizes young women. And I grew up watching big superstars like Miley Cyrus, who like did everything as a kid, and they were super successful when they were still kids, basically. Those are the people I admired and looked up to. So now that I'm in my mid-20s, I'm like having a huge identity problem, because it feels like I basically just slept through all those years that I overly heavily romanticized in my head. I gave some of those years to a really toxic relationship, and then I was using drugs, and then all of a sudden it's like I'm 26 and I'm supposed to be doing these adult things, and I still feel like I'm just barely entering my 20s figuring it out. And now I deal with like the feeling of feeling old and like washed up because I'm 26, which is so silly, because that's just not really the reality of things, and I know that. But it's hard coming from a background of people having interest in me specifically because of my age and being young and being the young girl or whatever. It now feels so weird. So I'm trying to like find out who I am now as an adult and who I am outside of those things. It feels very jarring to suddenly wake up and have all these feelings and all this stuff, but being in my 26-year-old body, it's just weird. It's so hard to explain, because it's not like I was necessarily like not here for those parts of my life. I was, but I was literally just laying in bed using, and that was like 99.9% of my experiences then. By the end of using, I really felt like a robot. I felt like I didn't know what my interests were anymore. I felt like everything I loved before addiction, I didn't love anymore. Nothing gave me any interest. I didn't like anything. Like, nothing made me feel alive, and that's what drugs do. They take everything from you, and they don't stop until they take all of you. That's what it does. So I remember waking up sober being like, I don't know who I am at all. And it was a very, very, very scary time. But luckily, through healing and continuing to work on myself and just continue focusing on getting through today, I started to find myself falling back in love with the things that I loved. Like, I'm starting to find myself again, who I am. Now I'm not just taking care of my animals because I simply care about them and want them to live, but like I'm actually enjoying it and I'm passionate about it, and I love talking to people about animals again. I love learning more about them. It's become a thing again that like I feel like how I felt before my addiction when it comes to animals, and that was lost for a while because I just could not enjoy anything. I didn't know what my favorite music was anymore. I didn't know if I liked any TV or not, because it all just felt the same. Nothing felt like it actually made me feel anything. I just felt this like impenetrable wall when it came to happiness, when it came to fear. I was unable to feel afraid of absolutely anything. I remember realizing that deep into my addiction that nothing could make me jump, nothing could make me feel startled. I feel like that does have a lot to do with my addiction, but it also has to do with trauma. That some people, when they go through trauma, they go to one end of the spectrum where they're very nervous and scared and easily jumpy. And then there's this other side of it that I didn't know existed until I dealt with it, where absolutely nothing can make them feel scared. There were several occasions where there'd be like, we could almost wreck and crash and it came out of nowhere, or something jumps out and like, I just feel nothing. And I watch everyone else around me react and I just wonder like, what's wrong with me? I can't feel anything. It sucks the life out of you, and trying to learn what your life is again after is very confusing. One thing that does give me hope though is that as I continue to recover, I'll look a few months back and I'll think, oh my God, how did I think that I was like healing and getting better when I am 10 times better now than I was like 3 months ago? Like, I'm already so much better now. I know when I first got sober, I already immediately started noticing things that I hadn't felt in forever, and talking about that publicly and talking about like how much has changed and how much I feel like I'm myself again. And then like 5 months will pass and I'll look back and I'm like, I don't even know who that was, but I've already become so much closer to like finding myself than I was 5 months ago when I thought that I was finding myself. And it just continues to happen that way. Like, now that I'm at a year, 6 months ago is insane. I was nowhere even near the amount of progress I've made now. That continues to give me hope and let me know that things are going to keep getting better. The main difference this time, and why I think things have been so different, has been that I was actually finally ready to face my trauma, and this was just something I couldn't rush. I couldn't make happen any sooner than it did. When I went to rehab the first time, it was probably the best rehab that could possibly exist. Everything was perfect there. It was truly like a resort. It was like a beautiful rehab, and they offered great help. Everything was wonderful, but I just wasn't anywhere near ready. I left my abusive relationship while in that rehab, and even that was I was backed into a wall kind of to do that, and I just could not process everything I needed to process with my trauma and my addiction fast enough. So by the time I left that rehab, I relapsed eventually. It took me 9 months, but it did happen. Now, I could have dealt with it during those 9 months of sobriety and then ended up staying sober, but that's just not how it worked. I pushed it all down. I didn't even know I was pushing it down. I got right back into posting videos and I thought everything was good, but it wasn't. It eventually caught up to me and I relapsed, and then I went to rehab again, and this rehab was more of a standard rehab, except it did allow phones. They really weren't a good rehab, but I think that's why they offered to allow you to use your phones, is because it was like a way to get people to come to the rehab, because otherwise it really wasn't good. That rehab was when I tried to get off suboxone too, and I was the first person that rehab had ever put back on suboxone after taking them off, because they don't allow it there. They didn't allow suboxone. And if you don't know what suboxone is, it's a medically assisted treatment for people getting off opioids. It basically blocks the opioid receptors. It's an opioid agonist, so it's not a full opiate, but it does have properties that an opiate has. So it also like stops the cravings, it stops all that, and it also has naloxone in it, which stops you from relapsing. So it's basically like training wheels for recovery, and I am still on it. I'm on the lowest dose I've ever been on, and I'm continuing working towards getting off of it. That's another video, but I do feel like it's kind of sort of ruining my life, so I'm trying to get off of it, which is very scary for me, because although it's ruining my life in many ways, it's simultaneously my safeguard and my security and what makes me feel safe with my recovery, and I feel like I will feel very exposed and at risk without it. I also won't have it helping with my cravings anymore, so it is very scary, but it's kind of sort of ruining my life physically. So yeah, I'm tired all the time. It's causing health problems. It's just not good. We're working on it. I'm a huge advocate for suboxone. That's not me talking bad about it. I'm not saying people shouldn't be on it. It's just not working for me anymore. I'm on a slow journey off of it. It takes a long time to get off of it. I'm on a very slow journey. The ways I have to go is still very far, even though I'm a year sober. Barely have just started showering consistently, brushing my teeth consistently, going out more. I'm in my first relationship since my ex from 4+ years ago. And so that has also been a really positive experience because he's a really good person. It has really helped me unlearn a lot of the trauma that I had learned and a lot of the abusive behaviors that I thought were okay. So that's been really positive for me too. I know some people will say that you shouldn't get in relationships until you're at least over a year sober. I started mine before I was. I'm not even gonna argue about that because I do think it's a good idea. So it's not like, I'm not trying to say that's a bad advice, but it just happened how it happened, and I really got lucky with meeting like the perfect person. I don't think there's any other person I could have possibly met where it would have worked. He's just so understanding about everything, and I just got really lucky. So that's something that's going on right now too, where I'm still unlearning a lot of the abusive behaviors that I have normalized. And all of that is a whole other mess. I don't really want to talk about it right now. That whole relationship is in a really weird part in my head still. I don't know how I feel about a lot of things, and I understand and I recognize that a lot of my interpretations about that relationship still are heavily reliant on the fact that I looked up to this person and like they were a really big part of my childhood. And so it's really hard for me to accurately view a lot of things, even in the aftermath, because of how much they influenced my childhood and my kid self. So there's a dynamic there that's still really hard to deal with and still really hard to fully understand everything that happened because of the way my mind has these permanent rose-colored glasses on for some parts. So I'm working on that offline. But with that being said, I'm making progress and I'm healing, so that's good. It just takes time. I feel more prepared to deal with the bad days than ever before. I feel like I have worked on so much more about my issues and the things that are related to me relapsing than ever before. And I really feel hopeful. I really do. For the first time in so long, I feel so hopeful and excited about my future. It's nice. It's hopeful. Everything's looking really good. Anyone struggling with addiction, please just know that you're not hopeless. No one's hopeless. I've thought to myself so many times that I'm never going to get better, that I recognize other people can get better, but I'm just not fit for it, that for whatever reason, it's just not going to happen for me. Just know you're never hopeless, okay? I just really hope you continue to make it through the day and that you get your life back from this eventually because you deserve it. And for everyone with loved ones struggling with addiction, it's not your fault. There's no amount of love that you can give them. You can't love it away. I really hope that you could seek out help for the impact that it's caused you, because addiction doesn't just impact the addict, it impacts everyone around them. And I really hope that you can get help to heal those wounds. There is Al-Anon, which is a free program for the loved ones of addicts seeking help, and a community of other people who understand what it's like to be the loved one of an addict who might not be able to give you anything in return right now. They're all run independently depending on the community you're in, so some might suck, some might be great, but it is a free place to try if you don't know where else to go. I hope everyone's having a good day. I hope everyone's doing okay. I hope that everyone in recovery is proud of themselves. Doesn't matter if you've been sober for a minute, doesn't matter if whatever. I really hope you just know that you are showing love to yourself and that you're on a path to somewhere really good. I'm gonna keep working on myself, and I'm gonna keep posting videos along the way, continuing to try to get more and more consistent. I'll get there. It's a process. I love you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!